By now, some of you at least will be aware that on Saturday, the 30th of January, as part of the Gideon Park Study Days, we are having Austen Ivereigh as a guest speaker, talking about Pope Francis' book, Let Us Dream, The Path to a Better Future. And in advance of that, what I'd like to offer you is an insight with Father Adrian and myself into what the study day is going to be about, and also more particularly what the book is about, so that you're ready for what happens on Saturday. Let Us Dream is a book written by Pope Francis in collaboration with Austen Ivereigh, and I'd like to ask Father Adrian, what are you looking forward to in this event?
Well, I think it's a very, very significant thing that Pope Francis has produced. Here it is, this little book, because throughout the pandemic, for me, he's been the one that's actually guided us, and he's led us to ask a lot of questions, not simply about, well, at the end of the pandemic, we'll get back to this, that, and the other, but what's this really all about, and how can we make things better? And I think, as you can read at the end of the book, when Austen has a little description of how this came about, Austen says that he suggested to Pope Francis, when he'd done an interview with him round about Easter, well, how about expanding this into a book? And Pope Francis was very pleased to do that. So that's how we have this book. It's certainly in Spanish, which is Pope Francis' language, but also in English. So it's very interesting.
Good. Yes, I haven't read it, but I'm thinking that it may be little in size but large in content. So, what would you say are the main points to emphasize?
Well, for me, the major point is about people being in this together. Actually, I think the way Pope Francis would put it is that we are actually all brothers and sisters, and the pandemic is a chance to rediscover that, or discover that in a way that we never have before. In fact, in the beginning of October, Pope Francis produced one of his encyclical letters, and it's called Fratelli Tutti, which means we're all brothers and sisters. It's about what he calls fraternity and social friendship. Now, a lot of people, politicians, have said, oh, yes, we're all in it together. But then it turns out, for example, I think recently what's really scandalized me is that rich countries are buying up all the vaccines far more than they actually need to, and poor countries are being deprived. I mean, that's not brothers and sisters, is it? That's not treating others as equal. So we're saying, well, actually, no, those people don't matter. And that is a common thing in recent history. No, we don't worry about those people. I heard recently that the government of Jordan has decided that all Syrian refugees within the country would receive the vaccination equally to Jordanian citizens. That's the way it should be, but that's not the way it is everywhere. And then, of course, Pope Francis has an interest, a great commitment to the situation of those who have left their home, refugees, migrants, and he's been very clear that they also have to be reached. And these are ideas which are really going to challenge a lot of the politics, a lot of the opinions that are around in the present time.
I should imagine he's managed to fit in some other points. What other points do you think he makes in this book?
Well, Pope Francis, I mean, it's fantastic because it goes off in different directions, but there are some major themes. And obviously another of the themes that Pope Francis is often talking about is ecology, is the climate, the environment, nature, the protection of the creation. And he talks about what he calls integral ecology. In other words, ecology is not just about nature, it's also about human beings. So treating everybody as brothers and sisters, protecting the animal world and the natural world, all of these things come together. And I think we know, I'm not a scientist, but I think it's pretty clear that the pandemic, the virus, has come from our disruption of the natural world. And so this issue of how we have disrupted nature, and we've got so many proofs of it in recent years and in the present time, this is another major thing. So issues that we need to consider beyond the very important issues of how individuals are coping, how families are coping, how different countries are impacted in different ways. There are also these bigger issues which Pope Francis is saying, well, actually, we've got to look at the bigger picture as well so that we can try and produce something better, do something better for the world. So particularly in relation to being brothers and sisters, protecting the creation, the care for our common home, as he calls it.
So if I were to put you on the spot and say, what would you say is the most impressive thing about this book? How would you answer?
Well, for me, I mean, I'm not surprised that I say this, but for me, the most striking thing is the leadership that Pope Francis has given. Now, this comes from his vision, from his experience. You know, we've got obviously politicians are very much concerned with their own situation. They're concerned to come out of things in the most positive light that they can. But Pope Francis has got the courage to speak out about these really important issues. And he says to us, let's not dig in. He warns us against digging in, against saying, oh, yeah, well, put everything back as it was and everything will be fine. And then, of course, when the next pandemic comes, we're not ready for it. There are more profound issues here, as I said, to do with fraternity, with the way we treat our brothers and sisters beyond national borders, beyond religions. You know, we are brothers and sisters together, and integral ecology means that we also have to look after creation. Now, all of these things are issues that politicians do have in the backs of their minds, but sometimes they get neglected. And what Pope Francis is doing quite fearlessly, and he's very well informed on this, he's got a lot of good advisors, is to bring those issues to the fore.
I'm aware, of course, that our own diocese is developing the process of forming and mentoring leaders and leadership in our own diocese. And I think Pope Francis mentions in the book that we have to be careful of populism and targeting individuals by leaders. So, what has he got to say in this book about that?
Yeah, he mentions, I mean, it's another virus, isn't it? Populism, where individual political leaders actually mislead their own people and demonize groups within society, whether it's immigrants, migrants, refugees, people of foreigners, people of other nations, people of other religions. These are things which we really got to get away from. And it obviously links up with being brothers and sisters. So he's quite sort of forthright about populism. We've really got to build bridges, not walls. He says we need to embrace the full implications of what it means to be children of God. And that means that is the fundamental truth about us. It's not that we're from Essex or from England or even from Europe. We are children of God, and everyone is our brother and sister. And that is a huge thing in our faith, and something which we need to bring into the present situation that we're in.
To summarize, then, from all the things that are in this book, what do you think is the main message?
I think it's that this pandemic, which has been dreadful, and cause an awful lot of suffering, is also an opportunity. It's an opportunity to ask those deeper questions. And he divides the book into 3 actions: to see, to choose, and to act. We've got to look at the way things are and say, well, what then are we going to choose to do? And this obviously has huge implications for the church, for politics, and we need leaders in both those spheres to step up and start speaking about these issues, or if they already are, to continue speaking about these issues. And then we need to choose to act. And the things that each one of us can do, we've seen that already. We've seen so many extraordinary examples of love, of heroism, of self-giving in the pandemic. Both in our local neighborhoods, in our hospitals, in all kinds of environments. And I think Pope Francis is saying there are reasons for this, and we can make the world better. And he's number one in saying, let's do it, let's get on with it.
Well, thank you, Father Adrian. I'm excited already. So I'm looking forward to it. And for those of you who are watching, I'll put up the details of the 30th at the end of this little promotional video, and the links that you may need to use in order to join and to listen to Austen and his talk about this wonderful book.
Excellent.